Hello, everyone. Welcome to a live stream, School of Music collaboration live stream today with Simon Quinn, who is the admin and coordinator of a community online called L.E.M.O.M. And L.E.M.O.M stands for Live Electronic Musicians of Melbourne. And Simon is also an artist in a band called The Safety Ward. And he's currently coordinating a very interesting project, which is a collaboration-based compilation album, or it's a double album, but one of those parts of the album is fully collaborative, and Simon is putting it all together. So, hello, Simon.
Good morning. Yes, nice to be here.
Oh, thank you. Nice to chat with you as well. Simon, can you tell us, or people who are watching this and maybe don't know anything about the project, could you maybe just briefly describe the idea behind that collaboration and the album?
Certainly. I'm from Live Electronic Musicians of Melbourne, and we're a Facebook group. We have roughly about 2,000 members, and before 2020, we were predominantly about live gigs. During 2020, as you know, no live events were happening, so we were looking at other ways that we could sort of stay relevant and keep communities together. So we did a compilation early in 2020 that was a fire aid compilation that was actually pre-pandemic in March. And then we did one called Covered Remixed, where we got our members paired up and they had to either remix or cover each other's tracks. And that was really fun. And and people said how much they enjoyed doing that, and also just getting to work with people that never worked with before. So this year we decided we'd do something slightly different. We're running an original compilation where people can submit an original work, and we're also doing a collab compilation. So we've paired producers up. There's 20 producers involved, and I did a live draw where I pulled names out of the hat, so it was completely random. I was going to curate it and think, this artist will work really well with this artist, but I just wanted to sort of let chaos theory run its course, and out of it we might get some really interesting collaborations because we've got artists from different genres working together to create something new.
Yes, I know that's a fascinating project, and there's a lot of challenges with a project like that. So what we will do today, we would attempt to highlight some of those challenges and maybe give people a few tips on what they should be mindful of when proceeding with the collaboration. One thing that we are encouraging everyone around the world, including people who participate in this particular collaborative album, is to consider submitting their collaborative tracks to a global collaborative music contest that the School of Music Collaboration is coordinating. So we have very similar deadlines. So the album you are coordinating or the submissions are due very much around the time when the collaborative music contest submissions close. And I might just quickly bring up some information about that contest, and hopefully that will provide an extra motivation for people collaborating on the album to put more work into that project. So collaborative music contest is free to submit your work to, and we have prizes with the approximate value of $16,000. We have the first prize and a runner-up prize, and as you can see, the deadline is November 10th. We have some amazing sponsors. You can see their names here. Companies that produce some great software for musicians. Groove Setter, Clefgrant, Source Elements, Rotor, Volta, Loop, and also we have a mastering prize sponsored by the Clockwork Audio Mastering. Some great judges from around the world, musicians, but also representatives of the music industry. So we will be looking at all the submissions after November 10th and choosing two winners for the contest. And here you can see some of those prizes. So the first prize winning team receives the biggest amount of software and support, and also mastering, as well as an opportunity for a worldwide music release if they haven't signed any other um, distribution deals before. There would be an opportunity for them to consider this as part of the prize pack. And the runner-up prize is also winning some very, very good prizes from the sponsors. You can see them listed on this screen here. And there is also opportunity for the worldwide music release here. Contest rules are listed here. I won't read them now, but anyone can jump on this page, which is provided as a link in the description for this YouTube video. And the timeline, you can see we are in the first part of this timeline, which is the open submissions. So submissions have been opened for a couple of weeks now, and we have already received quite a few submissions, but of course, the more the merrier. So we definitely would love L.E.M.O.M members to submit to this contest, because they are collaborating anyway, and the submissions can be done through the online form at the bottom of this page. So this is the contest, and what we could maybe do now, Simon, is just to talk a little bit more about the collaboration itself. So I know you and we both have collaborated quite extensively in the past. So it would be great to draw on those experiences and give people some tips as to what can go wrong, what they should be mindful of before they start working on the collab project.
Yep.
So I know you told me just before we started that you have done quite a lot of collaboration in the last couple of years. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, actually, last year we started a remix project with my band, The Safety Word, and each of those remix albums had roughly 10 tracks on it. But one of those tracks was a collab. So I've worked with Spectoral. We did a collaboration on a song called Games. City of Stars, as well, Leipzig Lab, Sleep Lab, and then first overseas collaboration with a UK artist, Zach Vortex. So each of these collabs is slightly different to the Lemon one, because I already had a song that I'd written at the start, and I wanted to get them to either sort of rework it, remix it, add guitar, add vocals. I sort of had something in mind for each of these artists when I reached out to them to say, hey, do you want to be involved with this? Whereas this Lemon comp is sort of different, where it's pairing artists up and then building a track from the ground up together. So so what I wanted to kind of know, what would be a really good way to get started. Just say, so I announced the pairs, so someone's saying, oh yep, my name's with this person that I've never met, but I've got their Facebook profile and link there.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, what would be your first step to getting a collaboration happening?
Yeah. So I think people can uh, take collaboration for granted quite easily, which means that they don't anticipate certain challenges that might come along with the process. And I think one of the very easy things to consider for collaboration, but often it's again not considered carefully enough, is the importance of good communication. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is establishing communication channels that work for both parties.
Mhm.
So, some people might prefer, if they're already on Facebook, maybe they already want to use Messenger, but Messenger is not the best because it gets very quickly very complicated to find certain messages from the past. For
Yep.
that reason, I personally prefer email, for example, where I can check
Mm.
what we have discussed maybe 2 weeks ago. Whereas on Messenger, it would be very difficult to scroll up the feed and find old messages. If people are local, maybe they can even connect on the phone. Uh, and
Yep.
that's kind of the more communication tool that I'm talking about now, which is like the pre-production phase.
Yep.
Not so much yet creating anything in real time or anything like that. So how do we communicate? How do we stay in touch?
Mm.
What mode works for both of us or more than two of us to make sure that we receive those messages and respond to them in a timely manner? Because if someone doesn't use email much, there's no point uh, selecting it as one of the tools that you would use for the collab. But I
Yep.
think that
Exactly.
that would really be critical, because that's where things get delayed, or people don't respond to messages, and someone can start feeling frustrated very quickly if that happens in your collaboration. So to me, this is at the heart of everything: good communication and establishing it as the first thing before you start to make any actual music.
So
uh,
you even yeah, so getting on a Zoom call or something like that. I know, my collaboration, partner, Chris Ferson, he's actually hit the first thing he said, "Oh, we've been paired up together. Do you wanna arrange a Zoom call so we can just have a chat about what we
mhm.
wanna make together?" I suppose,
Yeah, and Zoom
which
is great because it brings people, I think, closer together. But then
mm,
some people might prefer to have certain things,
mm,
well, in writing, but also maybe they want to have more time to think about things. Because, when
yeah.
I ask you now, hey, Simon, is it okay if I'll give you 5 tracks? And, I just wrote all of those tracks. Can you just use any of them? And, you might feel under pressure on Zoom
Yeah,
to say
that's a good
yes.
point. Yeah.
Whereas if I will ask you via email, then you might politely decline. You might
Yeah.
say, "Oh, sorry, I was hoping for more of an input from myself. I wanted to co-write with you rather than just get to
Mm.
rearrange existing work."
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good point. Is I mean, there's so many ways to go about starting a track with someone. I mean, I suppose one of the best things to do early on is to establish what both of the collaborators' strengths are, like what you could bring to the party that is going to be unique and something special. Because when you have something that's a sum of the parts, building together to create something magical, um, yeah, so working out, yeah, what it is that you can do that's special, I suppose.
Yeah, and what I would
Mm.
add to this comment is a discussion about the style of music that people might want to create together, because electronic music is a very broad term, and for some people it might mean completely different things. So I guess if
Mm.
collaborators for this particular project that you coordinate would be coming from very specialized musical styles, like maybe let's say someone is into
Mm.
dubstep and someone else into ambient,
Yeah.
it
So,
might
yeah,
be an
there's gonna be some
interesting.
interesting
Yeah.
combos where people are gonna
Mm.
have to sort of work outside their usual genres or create something, yeah, that sort of utilizes both their elements there. Yeah, I know there's been some pairings that, yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see what they do, whether artists do something that's outside their usual genre or, yeah, they mash it together to create, yeah, a sort of new new thing.
But
Yeah.
I think this is one of the
Mm.
best things about the collaborating in general, that you can create this amazing new quality because you are taken out of your comfort zone, and you might also benefit from a skill set of your collaborator that you don't possess,
Mm.
including their understanding of a genre of music that maybe you don't know much about. So some amazing new
Mm.
uh, combinations of styles can get created, which is definitely, from the musical point of view, a huge strength of this process, where people are uh, you pick them up
Mm.
from a head, so they
Yeah.
have no control over who works with who and what genres those people are interested in.
Yeah.
Another thing I think we should definitely mention is another critical thing, which
Yeah.
is um, the software side of things. So
Mm.
what software would people use to actually make music together?
Mm.
And that's a very tricky one, because in the perfect world, they would be using exactly the same digital audio workstation with exactly the same plugins, and they could just share project files of the same session among each other. And that might be possible for some people, and that's definitely another important uh,
Yeah.
discussion to have.
Mm.
What software do people own, and what software can they consider for the collab? um,
That's right. Well, I know with my one, I reached out to the person I've been paired with, and my first question was, "What DAW do you use?" And my fingers were crossed. He was going to say Ableton Live, but he
yeah.
said Reason, and I was like, "Damn!" But then, yeah. But I suppose the workaround to that, and even if we both had Ableton Live, we're going to have completely different plugins and things like that. So in the end, usually you have to render it down as audio, and then and give them MIDI files as well. Like, so if you've made a synth line, you'll have the MIDI information, and then as well as the rendered audio with that synth. So then, yeah, they can play around with the audio in both ways,
Y-
which is
y-
one workaround to having different audio, different DAWs that you're using.
yeah, so working with stems is definitely
Mm.
quite common for that reason that you just mentioned, Simon.
Mm.
Another scenario for collaborators is to consider whether they would like to introduce some specialized collaborative software into their process.
Mhm.
The question is how open those musicians are to embrace and learn something new for this project. And the amazing thing is that we are currently just very spoiled for choice. There's so much amazing software out there for musicians who would like to collaborate. And what
Mm.
is even more interesting is that a lot of that software is either very affordable or completely free. Um, so I often break up collaborative software into three different categories, and
Mm.
I recently did a podcast on that topic, and I put a link to that podcast into the description of this video on YouTube, so people can have a listen. And I do mention a few examples in this podcast, because collaborative software, even for the studio-based collaboration, comes in different shapes and forms. So it could be something uh, as a separate standalone collaborative digital audio workstation. And then again, many musicians might not want to abandon, what they already know very well. Like, you've mentioned Ableton Live. Uh,
Yeah, I would be a little bit reluctant because I mean I spend about 5
mm,
hours every day in
mm,
Ableton Live, and I kind of know it's like driving a car, like you can just do it without thinking. So you're not
uh,
worried about the technical aspects, only worried about the creative aspects. But having said that, I do like learning new things. And once you stop learning, I think is, when you just say, yeah, that's it. This is all I'm doing. I'm not learning anymore. That's when you don't have any growth at all. So yeah. So being open to new ideas and technologies is a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but if people, and I completely understand why you would not want to abandon powerful software that you know back to front.
Mm.
But what people could consider then is dedicated plugins that you could run from within your favorite DAW.
Mm.
Plugins, for example, such as Sonobus or maybe one of the source elements
Mhm.
products, plugins that stream audio between digital audio workstations. So in that case, it doesn't really matter what software your collaborator is using, because you
Yeah.
can hear their stream of their tracks on multi-tracked uh,
Wow.
plugins within your favorite DAW. So you could set up
Mm.
5 or whatever, however many channels you want, and stream audio separately. And that's especially good, I think, if
Yeah.
people want to record certain parts live, for example,
Mhm.
rather than produce them at home and then send to the collaborator. So, if you, for example, are a singer or a guitar player or playing a synth solo, and you would like to feel like it's a bit of a jam session, a plugin like that for audio streaming between two different locations is potentially useful. Um,
What was
another
that plugin called?
the free one that's very
Mm.
powerful is Sonobus. I actually interviewed the developer of
Yep.
Sonobus not long ago, and on this channel there is a playlist, and that interview is featured there. So there is a few tips that he's giving about that particular software. It's a great plugin for musicians who would like to jam, but also for anyone who would like to just capture a stream of audio from another person's computer
Yep.
remotely. Um, Source Elements is also another company that produces a lot of powerful professional plugins. And there's another interview with Rebecca Wilson, who
Mhm.
uh, is the CEO of Source Elements, and I have a link to that interview on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out. We talk about a few interesting things there about how
Mhm.
collaboration might impact on the creative process and technical problems like latency and things like that. But another solution that some people might want to consider is a plugin called satellite plugins, where they can upload stems into a private little cloud-based project managed by satellite, and
Mhm.
then again, it's platform agnostic. So it doesn't matter what software the collaborators are using. And on the other hand, if
Mhm.
you and your collaborator are using exactly the same software, for example, you both are on the same version of Ableton Live, and you are happy to use stock Ableton plugins,
Mm.
then what might be really handy is to use a software management platform such as Splice, which would uh, not only back it up for you for free into the cloud, but also keep track of changes and notify collaborators when a new version has been uploaded, for example. So
Okay, yeah, I haven't actually used it, but I've had a look at that, read up a bit about it, and so you create a version, and that goes to your collaborator, and they can open up the exact um
so
the
the
song.
way yeah, so the way it works, it's a bit like more music oriented Dropbox collaborations.
Mm.
So when you put files into Dropbox or Google Drive, you
Yep.
both keep the same project in one central cloud based location,
Mhm.
which is great, because then you basically are working on exactly the same project. You have access to the same samples. Everything is stored centrally for both parties, which is
Yep.
very great for collaboration. And what platforms like Splice or in the past Blend have done,
Mhm.
they replicated this approach of Dropbox. So they created their own server spaces for projects of most popular digital audio workstations, and they have a kind of private management of those sessions, and also collaborators uh, can get notifications through those platforms when somebody else has changed something, and then okay, well, there's a new version for me to look at. I don't even need to really check my email. The main thing to keep about this kind of collaboration is that it's not a real-time collaboration. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to save a version of the project and take a break and wait for your collaborator to do something, because they potentially are adding changes. So if you both are trying to add
Mm.
changes at the same time, you will create two separate versions of the project, and it can get a bit confusing.
Yeah, so I guess that's another thing with time management is, with this competition being 3 weeks away on Wednesday, and also my collab compilation. Yeah, it's working out, once you've worked out what style of song you might want to make, or you've got a loose idea there, is, would you suggest working out some sort of time frame for when things are going to happen in order to stay on the deadline?
I think having that level of accountability in front of your collaborator is one of the best ways to deliver what you have promised.
Mm,
So having a bit of a calendar, uh, basically a few dates in an email or a
mm,
Word doc, where you say, okay, by that date we would like to have the arrangement finished. By
mm,
that date we would like to have the mix, maybe the like say the first rough mix completed, and maybe what I would suggest here is trying to be realistic about how many days you typically require for A, the creative process, B, the technical process, such as mixing
mm.
and maybe even mastering. So, from your experience, you would know that, okay, maybe you are really fast at the songwriting, but much slower at the mixing stage. And I
Yeah.
would be very upfront with the collaborator and say, look, I can write a song in, I don't know, 3 days or one day, but it takes me 3 weeks typically to be happy with a mix. And maybe they would tell you, look, I'm really great at mixing, but I don't know much music theory. So that's a great
Yeah,
complementary
totally. Yeah.
skill set. But I think trying to ask yourself with your collaborator, and maybe that's where you can do it on Zoom, like a real time conversation. Ask each other, look at the calendar. We have 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and then look at the calendar and say, okay, when will we need to complete our songwriting process by? And
Mm.
then even put those as calendar appointments if you're really that organized.
Yeah.
And that would give you a reality check, because then you freak out maybe and realize, oh my goodness, there's so little time.
Yeah, well, that's something that I'm big with, is just getting started. Because once you're started with something, that the process is a lot easier. Whereas if you're sort of holding off, like contacting that other person that you've been paired with, you're waiting for them to contact you. A week could go by, and then you've lost, a third of the time to work on it. Because yeah, we're a little bit under pressure with the time constraints, but I mean, I sometimes think that pressure is really good. Just say we gave people 3 months, people might not even do anything for the first month. They're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm involved in this collab.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 3 months, plenty of time, not gonna think about it at the moment. I'm just gonna start thinking in my head." But, I'm a big advocate of just getting your hands dirty and getting started and getting into it as quick as possible. Because yeah, things always do take longer, or there's little hiccups that, bumps in the road along the way. So yeah, if you can get into it early, yeah, you're just going to give yourself more time and more chance to make something great.
Yeah, and
Mm,
presumably people who have put their hands up for this particular collab
mm,
already have identified that they can commit to this time frame. They knew in advance what the deadline is, I think. So hopefully you got people who are
Yeah.
able to find that time in their life for this process. But it's still a tricky process. I think, as we both know, there might be situations when some collabs go great and some don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
For variety of reasons. It could be that something happens in the life of a particular person that they just can't find time as
Yeah.
they were planning to do so, or maybe there is just not enough chemistry or synergy between the people.
That's right. Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
I've had people start collabs with our music, and they're like, "Yep, yep, want to do it." You'll send them the track, and then a few weeks goes past. You might send them a message, and they're like, the conversations start getting shorter and shorter, and you just have to say, "Look, if you're not into it anymore, just it's totally cool for you to pull out." And then they say, "Oh, thank you, thank you." I was feeling really embarrassed, because I tried with the track. I
Yeah.
tried singing over it. I tried doing whatever to it, and it just didn't work. I didn't feel the vibe, and that's going to happen sometimes. Yeah, but that's the thing, comes down to communication and just staying really honest with the people that you're working with, I think.
And
Um,
maybe, Simon, for L.E.M.O.M members, the big Facebook group that you are an admin of, would you suggest that they could even ask for feedback on work in progress, or do you think that's revealing the cards too early?
Um, oh, I haven't thought about that. Yeah, we might be able to have yeah, some early private SoundCloud demos, help people with mixes, things like that. If anyone's yeah
Because that could
struggling, yeah.
be, maybe that could be a solution for a collaboration that
Mm,
maybe the participating parties are not satisfied with.
mm,
Maybe they are thinking, oh, it's not what I was expecting at the start musically.
yeah,
Maybe they had different expectations, and perhaps getting some feedback from the community, because, as you said, there is 2,000 people on that group, and
yeah,
only a handful are actually collaborating now for that album. So I would imagine many people probably would be happy to listen to something in progress and suggest some ideas. And that's not for every
yeah,
collaborator, but those who might need that feedback, maybe they could
yeah,
get unstuck and continue the work after getting some suggestions from the group.
yeah. I was just going to give two examples of collabs that aren't going well at the moment for me, and and these are from external factors. So it's nothing to do with the artists involved. So we're meant to be collaborating with an artist from the US, and he sent us a song that he wants us to do vocals on, and he sent it to us about 8 weeks ago. But we've been in lockdown for 8 weeks. Recording studios aren't open. So he's
Mhm.
like, "Where's the track?" And I've just had to tell him, "We're in lockdown. This is the situation. We could record it on our home, setups, but it's not going to be like the rest of our recordings that you hear because we don't have, the $10,000 preamps and all of that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Or you can wait and have it, at really good quality." And he said, "Okay, we can wait. I know the situation, so I'm not panicking anymore. And I'll just wait. If it happens in mid-November, something like that, that'll be great." And the other one is a French artist we're working with, and he was recording vocals for us. And I kept asking him, where's the track? Where's the track? And he just started a new job. Then he had to move house. There was all these life factors getting in the way. And now he's actually got COVID. So it's just like thing after thing. So that it's been months, but as long as the communication's there, you can know what's happening. And if there's just no communication, then it will just drop off and not happen. But sometimes things take time to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and even being upfront is so important. When things go
Mm.
uh, tough for you, if you struggling with something, because even the examples you have provided,
Mm.
just being upfront with your collaborators and say, look, something really is going not quite right here, and I can't do what I promised. At
Mm.
least you are proactive and telling them preemptively about your situation, rather than having this awkward silence and people, knocking at your door, sending you emails and wondering if it's something wrong that they have done. So I think it's really critical, and then you can always ask for maybe extra
Mm.
input from someone else. There might be other people who can help. So I think being proactive with keeping your collaborators in the loop of how you are going is really critical.
Yeah.
And one extra thing that I feel maybe is worth mentioning here
Yeah.
is uh, introducing early on in the process some kind of awareness of the creative rights to the song and the
Yeah.
songwriting ownership process. Many people who are L.E.M.O.M members are presumably members of an organization like APRA or any
Mhm.
other royalty collecting society. So I think
Mm.
it's good if people are mindful of that earlier on to avoid any misunderstandings. And if you already have completed some music with your collaborator, it's typically a lot less complicated to introduce the discussion early on in the process. Not so much when the track has been released for, say, I don't know, a few months, and maybe then someone
Yeah.
finds this track really amazing and wants to put it in an ad or something like this. So if you had the discussion at the start and agreed upon the split of the songwriting credits, that's a much better solution as well.
Yeah, yeah, as early as possible for sure,
Mm,
'cause it gets harder the longer
mm,
times pass or once it's been released, and then you're going back into the royalty splits and having to do that. That's for
mm,
sure, yeah.
mm.
That's, um yeah. Oh, that's, yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
Did
so hopefully we have encouraged people to collaborate. I
Yeah.
think it's good that we have talked about some problem areas, because
Mm.
if you are mindful of what can be uh, a risky part of that process, I'm constantly hitting my mic.
Uh,
If you are aware of what could be the risky part of that process, uh, then you are ready to avoid potential pitfalls
mm,
and make sure that your collaboration is as smooth as possible, so you can learn from the mistakes of other people basically, rather than have to commit those mistakes again by yourself.
totally.
Mm.
And what about in terms of, like, getting started with a track? Like, have you got any tips for, maybe starting a track?
Yeah, so that's kind of going back to that initial question of having a healthy discussion about the songwriting process, and how many ideas can be contributed by everyone who is
Mm,
collaborating. So it can be tempting for some people to say, "Oh, look, I just have a couple of tracks. Maybe I'll just give them to you, and you do whatever you want." But I think that's the important conversation, whether your collaborator is happy with that arrangement, because many
mm,
people might feel like this is not giving them a chance to express themselves musically. So perhaps starting something completely new is what your collaborator might expect. And in terms of the songwriting process,
mm,
what I think would be really critical is to, again, establish areas of strengths and expertise.
mhm,
So I would have a bit of a maybe a list of strengths of every collaborator. So I could say, well, look, I'm really strong, say, with playing drums or playing guitars or programming bass lines, or I really know how to do chord progressions in a very cool way. I can make them very interesting. Or maybe your strength would be very technical. Maybe you would say, look, I'm really weak with music theory, but I could definitely help with the production part. And then you could have that healthy conversation how the production part could be considered an essential part of the creative process, and whether your collaborator agrees to give you the credit because your production was so life changing for this particular track that you completely turn it into something, a new quality, after you have added new arrangement elements, new instruments. So I think if collaborators already identify their strengths, then they can have a discussion. The next step would be who writes what. So if they both would like to be responsible for absolutely every songwriting decision, then they really need something that would allow them to do it in real time almost. So that goes back to the software discussion.
Yep.
If they collaborate remotely, and that would be need to be a software that allows them, for example, to record things like chord progressions together, or brainstorm ideas for chord progressions. And then they could also go about it in a bit of a layered way. So maybe they could say, okay, you lay down the chord progressions, I will start writing the melodies based on your chords.
Yeah, so a
So,
bit of back and forth. So
mm,
if you had a timeline, you say, okay, I'm really good at chord progressions, so I'm going to come up with just say 4 interesting chord progressions. Then I'm going to send them to you by Thursday, and then you'll have 2 days to come up with some melodies, and then send them back to me, and then I'll do some drums, and then I'll
mm,
send it back. You could write out a timeline of some that would be one way to do it.
uh,
If you weren't using like a live tool to be able to do it, yeah, in real time, it would be working out some
yeah.
sort of timeline like that.
So if you want the live element, then you need to consider a plugin like Sonobus, for example,
Mm,
which streams audio in real time, basically. And on top
yeah,
of that, you could have a Zoom session running where you can actually see each other for visual feedback.
yeah,
But yeah, going back to that kind of discussion, I think knowing the style of music would also determine quite a lot of things for many people,
yeah,
because in some styles chord progressions are very basic, for example.
yeah.
Straight away that would give them some kind of awareness of where they are going and what is critical, whether it's maybe the rhythm that drives the entire composition. And then they really have to have a discussion about the drum programming or drum recording. And maybe both of them would like to be responsible for that, because maybe both parties feel very strong about it.
Mm,
It's also about the control and giving up the control when necessary. So it's an interesting process. But at the
yeah.
end of all of that, the great thing is that you're creating something that you couldn't do easily all by yourself, because your collaborator most likely has something unique that you might not have.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Like, it's good to look at it in a way that you're going to be doing something that you wouldn't be able to do on your own. So utilizing, the strength of your collaborative partner, and it might be slightly, very different to the music that you normally make, but just allowing that chance to create something, yeah, different and unique in that, moment of time, because you can always go back and write the music that you make, that you can make by yourself, and you probably really like it because it's your music. But
Hmm.
while you're working with someone, just, allow that chance to do something that is maybe a bit different and outside your usual box that you'd work inside. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a great skill to develop anyway, because the music industry is all based on collaboration. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot more positives than negatives in this
Mm.
process. Mm.
Yeah. Well, one of my hopes is that hopefully some of the pairings from the Lemon comp, they might do some more tracks together or an EP together,
Mm.
or just open people up to like, oh, hey, I really like collaborating with people.
Mm.
Now I'm gonna reach out to people because I mean, before last year, I'd never done it myself, and then once I sort of discovered it and I saw how fun and fairly easy it was to do, I'm always looking out for people, and most people really love being approached to be collab. Like if you send out 5 or 10, requests to people, you're probably gonna get, at least 3 back. It's sort of
Mm.
like a numbers game, and most of the time when you get rejections, it's because people, don't have time in their schedule at the moment.
Mm.
Or people would say, "Look, I would love to work with you, but I'm not gelling on that particular track, or I can't see what I could add to that at the
Yeah.
moment, but please keep me in mind for the future," and that sort of thing. Um, I think
Absolutely, yeah. I
I
think the
I
numbers, the proportional aspect is
yeah,
important. If you do 10 collabs, typically 8 or 6 would be successful.
yeah, that's
Mm.
right, yeah. I think, I've probably reached out to about 50 artists for collabs, and yeah, probably 30 of them, yeah, have said yes. Yeah, and only probably really 1 or 2 hard no's, which is always a bit of a blow to the ego, but that's, totally, I was expecting a lot more, so, it's good.
Mhm. And what
Yeah.
was your the collabs you've done, Simon,
Mm.
in terms of your tools? You
Yep.
have always stuck with Ableton Live. You
Yeah, so, yeah,
never.
I'm Ableton Live. I've been with it since pretty much the beginning. I think
Mhm.
it's a great tool. I love how there's the 2 different views. There's the more jammy one and the session view. But yeah, this collab now with Lemon's very different to anything I've done before because, as I said before, it's been here's a track. Would love you to play saxophone on it. That sort of collab. So not a working from the ground up. So I'm really excited to work with my collaborative partner and build something from scratch that we're both involved equally in. And yeah, we're actually going to have a Zoom call today at 5, just to sort of get what we want to create because we're both sort of multi-genre artists, so we could pretty much go anywhere with it. So it's just seeing what style track to begin with, what tempos we're kind of looking at, what feels and that sort of thing. The other thing I was going to ask you is it sometimes good to not be too closed-minded? Just say we're at the beginning stages of the track, and we might have just say a few days of just brainstorming, where we might have a few songs that we sort of starting, a few different tempos or beats, and then we can decide from those which one we want to take forward as our main track for the comp.
I think what would matter here a lot is under which identity you would be happy to release that track. So let's
Mm.
say you have your project, the safety word, and you have a specific sound that you are working on with that project.
Yeah.
I guess the question for someone like you would be, do I want to release this collaboration as a safety word versus someone else? So
Mm.
two artists doing a duet of sorts.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, if you want to stick to your existing project, you probably will be driving more of a specific sound that you want to preserve there. And I think that's more of a limitation, but it has a
Mm.
lot of pluses because you already are adding to your existing discography as an artist, and you're not creating a new creative identity for yourself. And I
Yeah.
think that's how I often collaborate. I have 3 projects. Luckily,
Yeah.
they are very different stylistically. So I
Yeah.
cover uh, experimental ambient, new disco, and electronica across those
Mhm.
three projects, but I typically want to release music under one of those project names. So for me, I would always consider, does that fit the creative parameters of my project? But for some
Mm.
other people, they might be happy to let go completely and say, I don't really mind what style we will end up with,
Yeah.
because for me, this is a one off or a brand new project.
Yeah, that's a
Mm,
good point, 'cause it could be released, either as your regular artist's name, just say you're a house producer called Sunny, you
mm,
release it as Sunny because it fits in
mm,
with the vibe. But if you create a completely experimental,
mm,
ambient track or something, and you're like, "Oh, it doesn't fit with my usual thing, I don't wanna confuse people," particularly for the Lemon Comp, you could come up with a name or something with your collaborator and just release it as a one-off,
mm.
project name as an experimental thing, and you've created, a country disco track or something very
Yeah.
unusual, something far outside what you would normally do, and that's totally fine as well.
And then it takes off, and maybe you would really ask yourself, hey, we have to create a band and we have to continue in that style.
Yeah, that's
um,
right. It's a chance to do something
mm,
completely different than you'd normally do, for sure.
mm,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's good.
Yeah, so a lot of interesting aspects to the collaborative process,
Mm,
and I think what makes it even more kind of complicated is that there is no single answer that fits everyone, because there's so many variables. But I think we did flag a few potential areas
yeah.
of concern, and
Mm,
a few things to set up in advance. So hopefully that would help people. And one more thing I just thought about, that the benefit of having a huge Facebook group and the community there is that people could make themselves accountable in front of the group members by posting some little progress updates from their collabs.
yep.
Not even posting the actual music, but say, hey, today we have had a great session, we completed our arrangement, and now we have to start mixing, and
Yeah,
that might.
that's a great idea. I wanted to do
Mm,
something like that where I'm sort of checking in and making sure
mm,
everyone's still involved and still moving forward. So my first one's gonna be, a post getting everyone just to say hi to their partner in that chat, doing that sort of thing, and then, yeah, updates as it moves forward.
maybe
And I
they
think
can
the most
use.
the most important thing with all this is to remember that it should be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
If you're not having fun,
yeah,
don't do it. But, I mean,
yeah.
there's that comfortable boundaries thing where sometimes you've gotta be, yeah, riding on the edge of your comfort zone, but it still should be a fun project.
And I'm pretty sure it will be for most, if not everyone, involved in
Mm,
that collab, because it's really fun to have another human being uh, responding to your musical ideas, and you are responding to their ideas. And I think
mm,
it's a great way of feeling connected, especially now when we are finishing this huge lockdown here in Victoria. uh, so I think many people crave that connection, and for musicians it was especially tough, of course, because there
mm.
was not just the lockdown, but lack of opportunities to perform music. So yeah, I think it will be positive for almost everyone, I would imagine, because typically collabs are really good fun.
They are great
Mm,
great fun. I love
mm.
doing them. Kind of addicted to them now, which is good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great, and the deadlines are very healthy. Accountability is
Mm,
great. It makes you feel more motivated to do things when you post it about them to
mm.
2,000 people within the group.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think, and I know that the Lemon community is very active, which is great. It's not one of those groups when not much is happening. This is a very responsive community where you get people to really communicate well. So that's another
Yeah.
good sign for this compilation, for the future of this compilation.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's really good. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot here this morning. We've gone almost an hour now, which is great. We
Oh
weren't
yeah,
sure if
wow.
we're gonna go half an hour or
Yeah,
longer,
yeah.
but yeah, that's really good.
Mm.
Yeah. So did you wanna have a quick look at the collaborative competition that you're running again?
Just
Uh,
maybe just a quick reminder to
yeah.
people that we are hosting this amazing contest right now. I'll be recording probably some more videos either for YouTube or for the Facebook group that is associated with the School of Music collaboration. But essentially, the link for this contest is at the bottom of this video in the description. So you have until November 10th, no matter where you are around the world, no matter what music you make, as long as it's collaborative and as long as it's using online music collaboration tools, then you will be eligible to enter. So we are going to choose the best collaborative track of the year. So I hope this is enough of a motivation for everyone to join us in, and I will be definitely keeping in touch with the L.E.M.O.M community because I'm the member of the group. So I will be keeping my eye out on any activities in the group associated with this collaborative process that we've been discussing today. So yeah, I guess we could probably finish our chat. Thanks very much, Simon. It was great hearing about your experiences and yeah, just discussing the collaboration. Hopefully, it was of use to whoever is watching it.
Yeah, thank you very much. I've had a great time chatting with you this morning. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens with all of the collaborations for this. And yeah, hopefully we'll get some people entering your competition as well, which is just yeah the serendipity of it being just at the right time was just too good to pass up on. So yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm really glad that the times are well aligned for the deadlines between the two projects, Lemon and the collaborative music contest. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Simon. Great chatting with you today, and we'll stay in touch.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good morning.
Thanks very much. All the best.
Cheers.